Okay. Oh, is it recording? I think so. Okay, so good morning from New Zealand.
Hey, how are you, man?
Good, thanks, Cameron. And this morning I'm talking to Mr. Cameron Brown, who is the founder of the Thriving Collective, which is a training company helping people make a greater impact in the world. Did I say it right?
Yeah, that's good.
Right. And you're all the way, are you in Buenos Aires at the moment or?
Yes, yeah. Been here for a little over a month now. I've got a beautiful grand piano in the apartment that I have here, and creating some new music after being in Colombia for the last 3 months.
Wow. Well, before I ask you what you actually do and all the amazing things that you're doing for the planet, I actually wanted to know a little bit about you and who is this guy, Cameron Brown?
Apart from being incredibly good looking,
Zoolander.
no, no, I'm a guy who was born and raised in Australia, and grew up on a farm out there. Even had a kangaroo as a pet growing up, and family still lives back there, and I've got even the next generations back there now as well. So I can't wait to head back and hopefully win Cool Uncle of the Year again when I get back there and doing some cool stuff with the kids. But for me, it's coming from pretty humble beginnings to now being able to travel the world and help people make a greater impact in the world. I'm a big believer in being a living and breathing example of what that looks like. Rather than just speaking and coaching on it and doing the things that I'm doing, it's about, for me, being that if I'm going to speak and coach on something, I'd better be a living and breathing example of it. So for me, it's moved from just helping people and helping myself to being much more about how can we as human beings make an impact on the planet at a level that's much greater than just ourselves. And I think that part's been missing for a lot of years, which is we're seeing impacts on that in the environment at the moment. So, doing my part towards that is a big part. There's a number of things going on, but that's really what drives me to be literally on the other side of the world to where I've ever been before, and doing whatever I can to move the world forward and help us evolve as a species as well.
Excellent. So can you actually talk a little bit more about what that means? What is the Thriving Collective and what are the actual projects that you're working on?
Definitely. I've discovered, like, the last, 7 years in business now, and through coaching and speaking and training people on how to overcome their challenges, break through the things that are holding them back, create that greater impact. I really uncovered this about myself as well as other people, that we as human beings can make an impact on three different levels. We can have an impact in our own lives, we can have an impact on others' lives, and we can make an impact at a planet level as well. And realizing this, that either you're making a positive impact in those areas or you're making a negative impact. Maybe there's a neutral part, but often it's one of those. Either you're doing good for the planet or you're not doing good. Either you're succeeding in your life or you're not doing too well, right? And so the realization that I had is that if we as human beings, let's say there's a person who might be doing really well in their life, and they might be even supporting their family and supporting their community and running a company, and that's all well and good, that's all great. But if that success that they're having is at the detriment to the planet, then all their success is doing is speeding up the rate at which we fall into decline as a species.
Right.
And that realization for me happened a while ago now, and it was just, it was a huge insight for me, realizing that some of the people that we maybe admire and people that are doing or would be seen as successful by a lot of people from maybe a materialistic point of view or a financial point of view, could actually be doing more harm than what other people are. And so realizing that and realizing that it's a framework that really comes together inside, where, let's say, your internal self, your internal thoughts, your emotions, your fears, everything that's going on inside of you comes into contact with something external to you. And if you haven't got your BS taken care of on an internal point of view, then you're going to need something from somewhere else, you know, in the form of overpowering relationships, in the form of, you know, taking for yourself materialistic possessions, excess. You know, we as a species are living a lot in excess at the moment. And a lot of that comes from being in this space where we're creating things, and it just comes down to whether we're creating things that are good for all three levels or whether they're detrimental. And inside this, what I call the zone of impact, which is where these two collide, it's magnifying that even faster. And technology is magnifying it even faster again. Right? You look at social media. Previously, we would have where am I going with that? Previously, with social media, the old school of that is going to a networking event, for example. Yeah. And let's say going to a networking event, you might meet 10 people. And let's say it was a really crappy networking event and you didn't get along with those 10 people, right? You go away, you feel a little disheartened. Maybe if you've got a fear of rejection or a fear of being judged, then that might play on your mind for a while and it might have a negative impact. But you use something like Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter or YouTube or any of those social platforms. And if you've got that fear still playing out underneath the surface, and all of a sudden you've got 1,000, 10,000, 1 million, 10 million followers, and you're not getting the response that allows you to feel loved, then you're going to have the opposite, and it's going to be magnified off the charts. Yeah, the fear of judgment, the fear of not being loved, feeling like you're not appreciated. Those things speed up inside the zone of impact. And so, for me, training and coaching people on this, I've been doing it for a long time now. But I wanted to show, like, firsthand how this framework works. And so I sold or donated everything that I owned, or 99% of the things that I used to own, to go and drop myself into places that I've never been to before, exposing myself to environments that I've never been in, countries I don't even know the language in, and show firsthand that when you're utilizing this internal part and consciously creating with the external at the same time inside this zone of impact, it can speed up the rate at which you thrive, at which you make an impact on this planet on those different levels. And so showcasing it, so I got rid of everything, dropped myself into Costa Rica was the first one, realized, you know, I don't speak Spanish. It was just a crazy experience. But as I'm going, for me personally, my unique talents and strengths in terms of making an impact come around coaching and speaking, you know, training people in how to do this. Music that I create that I've been writing for 17 years now, writing music. And a new one this year was, you know, creating short films as well, which I had not done before. I, you know, grabbed a drone and just started playing around with it, and it's what turned into some pretty cool films now. And I think that, again, comes down to you understanding what the unique talents and strengths that you have, and then really pursuing those and getting out of your own way inside this zone of impact. So, you know, showcasing it now, it's been, at the time of when we're recording 1 year, there's been Colombia as well. I'm here in Argentina now. Next up is, well, depending on when, you know, whoever's watching this, I could be in a totally different location, but there's the potential of being in Australia, Sweden, Mexico and Canada and the US before the end of the year, over the next like 3 or 4 months. So, you know, and did I say Mexico? That was another one, but yeah, it's pretty cool to be, you know, going into those spots. But for me, like I said, coaching, training, as well as creating this music, creating these films, is showcasing, again, firsthand how we can utilize our unique talents and strengths to make an impact, rather than just saying, oh, you should do this. Rather than that, I just thought, well, drop myself into place and actually show how it's done and how we can utilize this zone to speed up the rate at which we actually turn these things around. Because at the end of the day, we're seeing some dramatic changes that we need to make as a species, you know, to be able to be in alignment with our planet and in alignment with each other as well. You know, there's been a few people that I've heard recently that have said, you know, we're living in the safest time right now. And that's true from a factual point of view, like rock on. But that's a people level. That's we're talking from a self and a people level again. There's not the planet level. From a planet level, in our time on this planet, which is a very small amount of time compared to the whole entire planet, we're living in a time that's a very, very, there's more extinction happening than we have ever seen before. There's other things that are playing out. That's meaning that this isn't the best time from a planet point of view right now. Yes, it's the most, it's the safest time right now. Rock on, that's a great thing to be able to have that. But we've got to go to another level. We've got to be looking at these 3 levels and looking at how we can align our talent and strengths to utilize them to make an impact. Because if we can have the millions of people, millions and millions, billions of people utilizing these unique talents and strengths, then all of a sudden the challenges will be solved, because everybody has this unique set. Somebody will be well versed in artificial intelligence. Another person will be more a spiritual person. Another one will be somebody who's in music or film and utilizing that to tell stories. It comes down to how can we utilize these to move the whole of humanity forward, but at the same time making sure that we're in alignment with the planet so that we can all live in balance, because at the end of the day, nature will win. And it just comes down to whether we're on the winning side or whether we're on the losing one.
Awesome.
There you go.
Okay, well, I can go now. No, thank you for that. I'm wondering, with the travels that you're doing, you said that you found yourself in South America and you knew nothing about this place. I mean, I can see you're very passionate and very philosophical, and you've got so much to share, but I'm a bit curious about, the personal shifts in Cameron Brown's life, because it's always good for people to understand why, what drives you, what was it in your own life that inspired this? Something a bit more, it could be a bit vulnerable, but I'd love to know if you're willing to.
Yeah, I'd love to share. There's been a number of stages for me personally over the last, especially over the past 7 years. There was some stuff before that as well, but that I worked through. But especially a mass transformation in the last 7 years, because going back to 2010 was when if anyone watching knows anything from my story, is that there was a suicide that happened across the road from where I was living at the time, and going over to find that a mother had just found him in the backyard, and everything that goes on when a family experiences that. And I was in the mix of that, looking after the 2 little kids inside while everything went on outside. And it was, something that I'll never forget, just on the basis of I can't imagine what they went through, following that. It was just a blur, that night, but following that, oh my gosh. And it was in that moment I thought, no one should ever have to deal with this. No one should ever have to go through this. Here you are living an okay life. What the hell are you doing about it when people need help? So that was one of the big shifts for me in shifting from just being about myself. And I had thought that I wanted to make a difference and all of that jazz, but was I really doing anything about it? Not so much. And so a few months later, I enrolled in a coaching course and went through a huge amount of growth in the next few months and going forward for the next number of years. But there was just a mass transformation in those first few months. I ended up then moving states from where I was. Went vegetarian, stopped drinking alcohol, was exercising every day. These big shifts in my own personal life. And this is vegetarian from somebody who ate meat every single day, right? to go into that and shifting towards that. And then as time went on, there was a number of years, a few years in between. Then when was it? Near the end of 2014, the relationship I was in came to an end. It was the relationship that I thought was going to be the relationship I would be in for the rest of my life, and it was what I felt, there was challenges that had happened, but I felt like I gave everything to it. Like my previous relationships, and my ex-girlfriends would be able to vouch for this, is that I had bullshit to work through. I wasn't able to fully express myself, to be able to give myself fully to a relationship. And so I had a lot of stuff to work through, and that's what I worked through in that period when I was not in a relationship. And still continue to work through in that relationship. But like I said, felt like I'd given everything to, and it was extremely heartbreaking for that to end. And painful. And coming out of that, I asked myself, similar to each time now when I am exposed to a new situation, is really questions and asking questions that could lead me to empowering answers. And so I started asking myself, well, if I'm honest with myself, like here I am, business is okay, not outstanding yet, but it's okay. And but am I really experiencing life? If I was experiencing life, like what would that look like? And I started thinking about, well, if I'm honest with myself, no. Okay, so what might I do that would allow me to truly live how I want to live? And then within like 30 to 40 days after moving out into the new place that I was in, I went skydiving, rappelling down waterfalls, overseas for the first time, gliding, whitewater rafting, mountain climbing, and a number of other experiences, like just in a really short space of time. It was and that was a big moment for me of realizing that life was very much about experiences, not things. And coming out of that, I then expanded the company internationally that I was running, ran events going into 2016 into the US and Canada. I had no idea what I was doing in terms of, I didn't even know how to dial a US phone number 18 months ago. And just going, hey, let's do it. Let's go for it. And worked that out. 4 or 5 months later, I was running events in LA and New York. And then on the flight back, I remember being, from LA to Australia, and it was only a small nagging feeling that it wasn't a massive, oh, you've got to do something about this, but it was a small nagging feeling of, and this thought in my mind that just was, here you are, you're on this flight, there's stuff back at home that's just sitting there, wasting away, like somebody else would be better off with it than I would. I'm not using it, right? And it was, like I said, just a small insight then. And I hadn't really pieced the parts together yet, but I remembered seeing a documentary by Tom Shadyac called I Am as well. And it's about him going from creating movies, making millions and millions of dollars, which he still makes a lot of money, but went from having mansions and all that kind of stuff to getting rid of everything. And towards the end of the documentary, he says, we have a name in the body for something that takes more than needs. We call it cancer. And that was a huge insight for me as well, just going, holy crap, as a species right now, we're a cancer on this planet. We as a species take more than we need. And I'm all for law of attraction and abundance and creating what you want. But again, it comes back to like, what are you actually creating? What are you actually attracting into your life? I believe in that concept. I utilize that concept to allow me to attract the things into my life that I'm wanting to experience. But again, if we're, as human beings, are attracting things into our lives that are detrimental to the overall well-being of the planet, then that's, again, part of the problem, right? To me, until we find a way to do different planetary systems and travel to those, where we have finite resources. And so say abundance all you like and law of attraction all you like, right now as we speak, unless you've got your law of attraction is going to be to have the solution to traveling through at the faster speed of light to get to other planetary systems that we can survive and thrive on, then there is a limited resource that we have on this planet right now. And so we've got to be smart about how we utilize these laws that govern this universe, right? Until we have the ability to actually expand past our current abilities, yeah? And so realizing that part, which is that we're living in excess, going and realizing it when I was on the flight back, and then the July tour was what really drove some changes, because it was just an intense tour where I did 7 events in like 3 or 4 weeks across 3 countries. In there as well, like recorded music in a recording studio in Santa Monica, had a full day photo shoot like in LA, and went from the photo shoot in like on Miami down in California to the airport in an Uber, and got my flight back, and then ran the events there 2 days later in Australia. Like, it was insane, right? I ended up getting a little sick in between the Australian events, and it was just a moment of realizing, well, this framework and how I'm going about it isn't sustainable long term. It's going really well, like it's amazing, but it's not a sustainable business model. And so I started thinking about, well, what could I do that would enable me to continue to travel still, allow me to continue making an impact, run the company wherever I am, continue allowing me to create music and do the things that I want, and have it as a way where it's has an even greater point of difference and can inspire people even more. These are some of the pieces that were going around in my mind. And for me, and what I take clients through, and in the speaking engagements as well, for me, it's very much about curiosity first. If you need to know how something's going to go, the moment you need to know is the moment that you're fighting against curiosity. Curiosity comes from being okay with not knowing, being okay with the unknown, because everything that is, when you're curious about something, you're curious about something that you don't actually know the answer to yet, right? And so this happens absolutely when we're working out as people what we're going to do next. If you need to know, what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my life? It's like you're focused on the problem. You're focused on needing to know the answer rather than being curious about what the solution could be. And this sense of curiosity, but being very, very clear on the emotions that I was wanting to experience as a result of whatever vehicle I chose. That's the key, is having an understanding as to what the emotions are I was wanting to experience, and then being curious about what that might actually look like when I arrive, right? And how far it might exceed it when I actually get there. And so that's what led to, looking for places that had pianos around the world, because, well, if I don't have a piano with me, then maybe there's something that I could have. To begin with, it was like, could I, is there a piano that I could fit in my suitcase that I could roll up and put in? There's one that exists. There is. Like, I found it. Yeah. You plug it into your computer, or as a MIDI controller. Obviously, not that great a quality, and no weighted keys or anything like that, which I'm used to from having a piano, an actual piano, growing up. So the crappy keys, I don't really do too well on those, but to express the emotion in the music. And then I thought, well, I wonder if there's places around the world that I could stay in that have actual grand pianos in them. And I've just found this sea of pianos all around the world. I was in a small castle in the mountains of Costa Rica playing there, and here in Buenos Aires right now, and there's one in Mexico, and there's others like just in a lot of countries around the world. And so that started the curiosity. I thought, well, okay, that part's taken care of. How can I piece all the other parts together? And so that led to me then getting rid of stuff. I had no intention of getting rid of everything at the time. Then came across these 2 Nomad bags that looked larger online than what they turned up to be in person. And so I had all my stuff still in the house, and I got these 2 bags. And I remember looking at the packaging going, oh, shit. And I opened them up and got, oh, no. I go, well, you decided on this, man. And I'd already made the decision to go to Costa Rica, had booked the flights, and again, had no intention to begin with to be there for 3 months. I was going to be there for 2 weeks, and then just landed on, screw it, let's make it happen. And then got there, got rid of everything, and arrived in Costa Rica December 31st, and the rest is history. So there's some of the key moments that have happened that have led to, I guess, from an evolutionary point of view, for my own self. And then I would say just the last thing to mention is probably as this has gone, like the things that for me personally of being exposed to have just led to growth on a personal level, and then obviously a professional level, because everything stems from self, at just a astronomical rate. And I attribute this again to this zone of impact, is that when you're exposing yourself to external environments at a rapid rate, and you're able to actually learn and grow through those, like, growth happens so fast that people look from the outside going, like, what the hell, man? And it's because the external, a mentor of mine once told me, the quality of your life will be in direct correlation with the amount of uncertainty you're okay with handling. And that it makes perfect sense, because uncertainty is outside of your comfort zone, right? It's everything outside of what you currently know. And so the more uncertainty you're okay with, the faster you're going to grow, because you're needing to be inside of your comfort zone for periods of time, and long periods of time, like a lot of people are, because they're not okay with taking risks and potentially of something not going right. Then, and needing it to go a certain way, the moment that something fails, then they close up and go back inside their comfort zone. And so if that, the moment that those things occur is the moment that you're not growing. Yeah. Everything inside of your comfort zone, you're not growing. Until you move back outside again, you might be growing, outside a comfort zone, back inside a comfort zone, and you're still growing, and it seems like you're growing. But the more you're able to expose yourself to these environments, these external environments inside this zone of impact, then you're colliding with these new external experiences that allow you to grow so freaking fast, and that allows you to then make a greater impact as well. And so for me, like, some of those have been being exposed to deforestation firsthand, and pollution of rivers, and just things from mining companies moving into areas that you just go, oh no. Those experiences. I remember there was I was in this beautiful natural reserve, and seeing just the destruction going on and just being heartbroken, like just thinking, what, man? And just seeing the scale at which this is going on, the thinking of, how am I even going to be able to make the impacts that is required here for us to evolve as a species. But I'm a big believer that you're exposed to the things that are allowing you to grow, and it just comes down to whether you take the opportunity to actually learn and grow and evolve through those. And I remember feeling disconnected in this place in Colombia from, element from myself, but more so from people, and just being pissed off, just going, what the fuck are you guys doing? And realizing from a planet point of view as well, like, we're just out of alignment, realizing I was out of alignment in that moment as well. And for me, I get back out into nature when I know that I'm out of alignment. It allows me to connect again. And I remember going down to this river. I had my backpack on with me because the place I was staying didn't have windows. It was just like in rainforest. And so just to be safe, to have like all of my electronic equipment and everything, took it down with me. So heavy bag, walked down, it was just on dusk, and found this place next to the river there on these rocks. And I walked down and went to sit down. And just as I was leaning back, I slipped a little, and just, when you lean back a little and something heavy is on your back, you've got no control over it. And so I went back and smashed my head against the rocks, and my arm on my right side bent on this weird angle, and I have no idea what actually happened. But I was in some serious pain there for a while, and managed to sit back up and remembered a quote by Bruce Lee, just as I was looking at the river, right? Because the river was just flowing down like this, and the thing that I take all of my clients through, because it's so powerful, is be like water. Yeah, and as I was watching the water just flowing down, because as human beings, if we are exposed to situations that we try to control, like let's say you're the physical person flowing down a stream, or let's go an even more natural example and say it's a massive log or a tree that's fallen over and it's flowing down the stream. It's going to smash against the rocks, probably get stuck at some stage, wedged in there, like there were a lot of them down the stream. And, it's going to get stuck, right? Whereas if you're the water, you're just flowing down across those rocks, around those rocks, beautifully all the way down to the ocean, right? Us as human beings, we allow, a lot of people will allow the emotions to get stuck in them rather than flow through them. And if you can be more like water, that's the flexibility that we talked about before. It's the curiosity, it's the vulnerability, it's the flow type of energy. It's that feminine type of energy that allows that flow to occur. You know, everybody has masculine and feminine energy. There's different times and places for both. If you're just from a masculine point of view, which is so focused, then that's you know, when you're on the right track, rock on, go for it, right? But if you're trying to utilize that masculine type energy when you're needing to be flexible and needing to be able to be expansive in being curious and being able to dream up ideas and be creative, then it's the exact opposite to what's required in that specific situation. And so I have no idea how we got there or what we're up to, but it was the insight that we were going with, and rock on.
What it is. Well, look, I was going to ask you.
I've got one more thing. I just remembered, like, just the last part to that story is because it's important for that story that that quote came to me.
Okay.
And then straight afterwards was Jane Goodall, who's an amazing conservationist. Just I'm inspired by her every day. And it was just the remembering her in one of the videos. There's still a lot that's left worth fighting for. Yeah, there's still a lot left that's worth fighting for. And then a little leaf just floated down into the river, and I thought, okay. And so, you know, checking in with nature and you know, those, again, being exposed to those environments and being able to grow as a human being has been you know, hugely beneficial. So just, yeah, that's another piece. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. Your turn.
Thank you. Can I get a word in? No, I love listening to that. But I was wondering, do you think the fall had something to do with the fact that you had to have that moment of reflection and maybe think about, am I in my masculine too much, or do I need to pause and reflect and flow a little bit?
Oh, like for me, absolutely, rock on. You know, there are so many situations. Like I'd call myself a spiritual guy. I think spirit and science is coming together anyway. And you know, in terms of science showing that we're all connected, and other things coming towards that as well. But yeah, you know, what happened was when as I got up, as soon as the thought came to me about Bruce Lee specifically, you know, and I was in some pain still. You know, as soon as that came, I said out loud to myself, yeah, okay. It was like, all right, now you got me. Yeah, that's why getting out into nature, I believe, whether it's from a spiritual sense or from just the nature and the beautiful intelligence that is nature, that's imperfectly perfect. Like there is just beauty in that, and when you connect to that and reconnect to that, there are amazing lessons. I learn more. I would say more from nature in this year than from any of the other mentors that I have. I've learned more from nature itself.
No, absolutely. I mean, I actually made a video on Monday because I similarly go to nature and usually water when I want to flow.
Yeah.
So funny that you were talking about that, and I was reflecting on the masculine feminine. But it can work both ways. Sometimes I feel when I'm too in the feminine, I'm just flowing too much, but I'm not achieving anything, or I'm not taking anything.
Yeah. If you spend all your time in your feminine, you're not going to get any shit done.
I mean, you're just dreaming away, and you're like, oh yeah, I'll do this one day, I'll do that, and then nothing happens. You know, you're just living in your mind. So it's about bringing it to balance, but it doesn't always have to be in perfect balance either. I think there's like a bit of a misconception about always having to be yin and yang. Sometimes you're driven more by the masculine, other times you need to.
Absolutely. So, there are times, like for me personally, within the coaching sessions that I have, if I'm just, you know, there are times when the curiosity and I'm training them in how to you know, bring that out. But for a lot of the times, it's like, go, man, like, you know, this is what's going on, and just smashing the problem, right? It's a very masculine type energy, and there's absolutely a time and a place for that. And, you know, getting off the call going, dude, you fucking smashed that, man. Like, you absolutely rocked their world. Like, that's a full-on masculine type energy. But it's building in a reference point for how things are going really well. It's building in a reference point for how, you know, for me personally in that situation, I was able to succeed. And so when you know, whoever's listening into this, if you're, you know, building in reference points for how things are going extremely well from both a masculine and a feminine point of view, because this is your ability to be flexible. It's your ability to adapt to the situation, to be able to put forward the part of your personality that will allow you to get the result in that specific moment. Sometimes that's feminine, sometimes it's masculine, sometimes it's a mix, sometimes it's an even kill. Whatever it is, your ability to be able to adapt to the situation is at the end of the day, it's our ability to evolve as human beings. The most adaptable to change are the ones that survive and thrive for the years. It's not the strongest and or the smartest or anything like that. It's the one most adaptable to change. What is it? Charles Darwin or whoever said that. Like I said, it's totally spot on with emotional evolution as well.
So how do you personally integrate that into your own life? How do you know that you've learned a lesson? Like in terms of your own personal evolution, are you the sort of guy that has to have these fall on the rock moments, or does it come to you, or does it gently appear, or is it a variety of things? Like, how do you know that you've moved through or shifted through, or that the shift has happened?
Yeah, it's a good question because, short answer is that it's definitely a mix. Longer answer is that I've gotten better at it not having to get to a point where I'm having a breakdown. Often people's biggest breakthroughs happen directly after their biggest breakdowns. The reason for that is because they're not listening. And so silence speaks to you, but only if you're quiet enough to hear it. And so the insights are there. And most people will be able to will vouch for this, whether they've been in a relationship or some other business or whatever the thing has been. And they look back and go, yeah, I probably could have seen that like 5 to 10 times, steps ago, and I just wasn't able to see it. And so, and this has happened with me as well, and it still happens from time to time, but even more so before, where I've written a song and then like 6 months later, I think the longest was like 2 years, and I realized that's what that was about. Really? And there's like a massive lesson in it that I had the insight for like ages ago, but it took me a while to catch up. And so I feel like this year, there's been, because even though like that example of falling on the rock, it was still only a very, to me, a tweak in behavior that had a massive difference, right? But it wasn't that I was in complete breakdown mode. It was just feeling a little bit out of alignment, yeah? Whereas I used to cycle out of control. I used to be really shocking at this. And it would take ages to be able to get myself back into a state where I was in a positive state of mind. But now, there are tweaks and shifts that happen pretty quickly for me personally, because I'm constantly checking in with myself. I'm constantly checking in about how I could experience the emotions that I'm wanting to experience on an even deeper and more meaningful level. What are the things that are holding back? How can I overcome them? Or now I achieve that, I wonder what else is possible. So all of a sudden there's a number of layers of momentum that are created out of not only action, but the language that's being utilized for me personally in my mind, and same with clients now as well. And that language is constantly directing toward outcome and what we're wanting to experience, with my clients and people that I speak to and with me personally, versus what used to happen, which was this total internal battle of sometimes being able to do it, other times being absolutely woeful at it. And there are still times where, there are challenges that happen, but again, it comes back to the allowing the emotions to flow through rather than get stuck in, because the moment they're getting stuck in is the moment that you haven't learned from the lesson as soon as you could have. And any time from when that occurs, when it first gets stuck in, to when you actually do something about it, can just be wasted energy. I hate to say it.
From a client perspective though, Cameron, why do people take so long to learn a lesson? I'm just speaking from personal experience. Sometimes some things just happen like this. And I can really relate to the stuff you were saying about uncertainty, because I've moved so much in my life, different countries, and been exposed to things that I've managed to shift things. But while I was going through it, it didn't seem like it was happening.
Yep.
So why do people get so stuck on one thing? And some people take 30, 40, 50, a whole lifetime to even put a dent in it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few different things that generally play out. What I found from my own personal experience and working with people. One of them is that because it's become so unconscious, they believe it's just the way that they are, and there's no way of changing. It's just who they are. I remember there was an executive of a bank that I worked with, one of my earlier clients a number of years ago now, and we had the initial breakthrough session, and it was huge for him. So we went back, like he was in his late 50s, I think, from memory. That around that age, and we got back to when he was, I think, like 4 years of age. Something that happened then that had dictated decisions throughout his entire life, right? And we shifted things in that session, and came back next session. And this is when I was doing one in person. I said, "What would you like to share since our last session?" And he said, "I can't believe it was that easy." And it was amazing, just that reference point, because a lot of people feel that because it's the way it's been all this time, is that's just the way it's going to be. But I got to say, the most overused yet the most overused but under actually utilized quote in the world is the definition of insanity. Is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. People say that constantly, right? Yeah. But I would say the overwhelming majority of the population, me included at times, overwhelming majority of the population though is constantly living in insanity.
But isn't it amazing that repetition, can work for the good or the bad? If you just have to make a decision, with that and then work towards that. But because we're wired with the repetition in a negative way, we continue that way.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, how do people have that shift? Do they need to see a person like you, or can it happen in a different way? Can you?
To me, it's that there's got to be some form. There's got to be some moment, because and there's got to be some realization and awareness of something that you haven't been aware of before. And so, if whoever's tuning in and checking this out and listening in, if you've been exposed to some form of belief for a number of years, however long it's been, and it's become unconscious, you are going to need something to increase your level of awareness externally. If you've developed the thinking for that, rock on. But there's a reason why you're stuck. It's because you haven't developed the thinking for it, okay? And so whether that comes from a book, whether that comes from a seminar or workshop, whether it comes from doing a breakthrough day with me personally or something like that, or another coach or someone else that can help with that, whatever the thing is, I'm not really fussed about that. It's about working out for the person, what is my outcome and what's the quickest way for me to get there. Money is to me, money used to be more important than time. Time is much more important than money. Money you can always make back. Time is just absolutely precious. And so investing in yourself, investing in the time, the energy, the money into yourself is, for me personally, has been the biggest thing that I could have ever done. And I've invested a huge amount of money in my own development. And so, it's going to take usually an external question, or somebody who's well versed in this, or like I said, a book, or if you're able to develop the thinking now because you've learned how to move through these, there's got to need to be something that shifts your focus away from how things have currently been into a space that you haven't seen before, which allows you to get to the solution. So yeah, there is going to need to be some form of shift, and you've got to be okay with that. You've got to be okay with knowing that that's just the way that it is, and rock on. Get outside of your comfort zone, just get it done, because life's too precious not to do that. And it's what it was for me. I mean, I going back in terms of the training that I went through, I went through training to be able to help other people, but I needed to help myself first. in those trainings, and it was both coaching as well as like group training. You know, I had a belief that I couldn't love and couldn't miss people. It was just completely missing from me, right? It was just a thing that I didn't know how to access, and then found a way to access that again through going through training and through the coaching that I went through, and broke through that. And all of a sudden was able to release that, and had an experience when I was in Melbourne at the time where this flood of emotions came through from the last relationship that I had been out of for a long time, right? And I still remember there was a song that I wrote then, and that it was so painful to write, but I was able to feel something, so that was better than feeling nothing at all. And some of the, just from memory, the lyrics go, I'd rather feel something than I'd rather feel something than feeling nothing at all. I hold this all so closely to my heart. Yeah. And that was that playing out. Like while I was writing this song, I was experiencing these emotions, because finally I was able to feel this sea of emotions that I had closed off from to protect myself from getting hurt when I was a kid. And so from something that occurred back then. And so understanding that and being able to access that, I had spent years of not knowing, of thinking this is the way that I was, of a relationship that came to an end because I wasn't able to give that person what she deserved, and had to go away and work on myself. And for a period of time, I worked on myself by myself and still didn't come to the answers. It wasn't until I got the training and got the coaching and went through the transformation that things actually shifted for that, which then allowed the growth to occur in the areas that we've talked about, and the evolution to occur onward from there. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I almost feel that we need to do another separate interview just on that, because I think that would be really helpful to men, but also to women, you know, to hear about your personal journey, because so many people seem to be blocked and are not willing to go there because of what we talked about before, like, you know, just being stuck in a belief system that's just how you always go about it, and you just kind of live your life out through. So I really feel that that's another topic that we can touch on.
We can talk for weeks, Mia.
I know. And
the last thing to mention there, I think, is important is where was I going with that? That's it. The realizing that the sabotaging patterns of behavior that are going on in your life right now, whoever's listening to this and watching this, they served you at some time. They were supportive of you at some time. They were utilized to keep you safe. That's what the ego is here to do. It's to save you from that saber-toothed tiger killing you, right? Yeah. We haven't evolved that much as human beings. The ego is still there, but it's more from a psychological death rather than a physical chance of death in the first world anyway. There are other parts of the world where, you know, physical death is very real, the potential of that. But a lot of cases, it's more the psychological potential of that psychological death. And so realizing that it served you at some stage, but it's just become ingrained, and you've generalized it out to being, well, I can't trust that person, so I can't trust anybody, right? And all of a sudden, these patterns of behavior have turned into something that had nothing to do with the original reason why you had it in the first place. And so work on it, smash through it, because life gets a whole lot more enjoyable when you do.
Excellent. But before we do come to a close, though, I really did want to just nut out a little bit more about what you do, how you do it, who are your clients, how do people get involved with you. Just really want to make sure that we don't end and it's not clear to people. So do you want to just kind of simplify it? Like,
definitely.
What are you offering? How do people contact you? What's, you know, that kind of a thing.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, there's three main areas. Is the 3 web series that I do as I travel the world. There's the coaching that I do and the speaking that I do as well. So the 3 web series, just really briefly, there's one that's called The Zone of Impact, which shares stuff like this, education as I travel the world, insights in different parts of nature and stuff, stories, all that kind of stuff that help people make a greater impact. The second is a weekly music series. So I record a new song on a grand piano somewhere around the world, and there's that series. And then the third one is called A Place Called Earth, the series, which is footage of beautiful, like drone footage of nature, rainforests, waterfalls, beaches of different countries, and people that are doing good in the world. So some of the films coming up are, there's a reforestation project, there was a conservation one, an animal sanctuary, a place where there was recently discovered petroglyphs, where where they're trying to build up ecotourism. So that's that series. So they're the 3 web series there. And then from a speaking and a coaching point of view, doing more and more speaking across North America. I'm in Portugal in May, and potentially Israel and Sweden. And so more and more speaking engagements. People can have me on stage with a grand piano now, speaking about a topic and piece, and blending that together with a grand piano on stage, talking about a topic, and footage that's been captured around the world. So that's from a speaking point of view, talking about topics around creativity, innovation, the power of relationships, the zone of impact, which is what we touched on, this kind of stuff, emotional intelligence, and those 3 levels of impact. And then from a coaching point of view, it's the same kind of thing, but on a one-on-one basis. It can either be done by video call anywhere in the world, or it can be done as an adventure experience in a specific part of the world, being able to be exposed to nature, adventure, and breaking through stuff that's holding them back. So for that, it's more of a higher end type of experience for those who are either running a decent sized company or are a sizable influencer. But from the breakthrough day point of view, I've had anyone from a mum to a world champion athlete to CEO of a major corporation to anything in between. So it is very much so for those who are dedicated to utilising whatever they've been given in this world to make a greater impact. So they're the key things that are going on right now. Excellent. And what's your website, or how did they contact you? Thrivingcollective.com is the website, and if anyone who wants to catch up on the social platforms, /askcameronbrown is the handle on places like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, YouTube, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll try and work out how to do these links. People just, you can just repeat /askcameronbrown and thrivingcollective.com. There you go. And repeat. And go and subscribe now, and you'll get a free set of steak knives. And, except I'm pretty sure we're both vegan, right? Probably the wrong advertisement, right? What do you want to leave us with today? Like, what can you say to inspire people watching? The last 2.5 years for me personally, life's been pretty awesome for a number of years now. But the last 2.5 years and this year, just this year off the charts, is that I'm a big believer that curiosity is one of the most valuable things that a person can develop. It is amazing what happens when you open up to this sea of curiosity, because curiosity is the gateway to creativity and innovation. And when you open up to that genuinely and get out of your way, which is becoming your own best friend, a lot of the stuff we talked about today, in this, you allow yourself and open yourself up to this sea of curiosity, like the magic that comes into your life and that you're able to experience. You start to experience things that you never even dreamed were possible, and then all of a sudden the language that you're utilizing is, well, I wonder what else is possible. Oh, I wonder what else is possible. Childlike curiosity, guiding that with the emotions you're wanting to experience on a consistent basis. You do that, and worlds open up to you, literally. Excellent. I think that's the word of the day, curiosity. So we'll end with that. Thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure. I'm going to go and chill out, maybe get some piano playing in before it's a little too late here. And it's been awesome chatting and sharing today. Thank you so much, Cameron. And I hope I can talk to you again, maybe about some of the topics we kind of didn't get into. Cool. Awesome. Bye. Yeah, bye.